Nice little warning there to kick off today for us. The meeting is being recorded. Hey guys, how you doing? Joined today by Meg Braithwaite, as I'm sure most of you would know, and joined by Richard Scenna from YourLink. How are you guys?
Well,
good, Si. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. No worries at all. I think a few people are connecting. Oh, they're coming through thick and fast today. What a interesting day to be recording this session or this webinar series. So I'm located in Victoria, so I'm one of the lucky ones that are heading into 7 days worth of lockdown coming up. I think we're kind of approaching about 130 days in Victoria of lockdown over the last, what would have to be year and a half now. I think this has kind of been going on for, or something along those lines. And I was actually chatting to my nana, my grandmother, before. We have like a family WhatsApp group, and we were just chatting through. She lives by herself on the peninsula in Victoria, and we were just chatting through what her plans are going to be and who her bubble person is going to be over the next 7 days. And here we are talking about technology adoption across aged care services. So yeah, welcome to both of you.
Thanks. Yes, thanks very much for having us, Simon. I think it's great timing, but also not great for Victoria all at the same time, but good for our discussion today. So I feel for you. My apologies in advance.
I'm used to it. Don't worry. I'm okay. I've got all the tools around me to keep myself centered throughout this time. A bunch of another 7 days of inner reflection potentially, but nothing wrong with that. So, Richard, thank you so much for joining us. You are the founding director of YourLink, and the overview I have is you're an organisation that's dedicated to digital inclusion for seniors and care workers. And we've had a couple of chats leading up to this, and another one today where I think we could have just rolled on for another hour or so, pre-webinar. But maybe we can kick off the conversation today just by giving us a little bit of insight into what you guys do at YourLink and the work that you're doing across the sector. Maybe a great place to start.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Simon. Great to see you, Meg, and everyone. Looking forward to this conversation. Pleasure to be here today. So we started off YourLink about 6 years ago, myself and Rick Hollingworth, and our intention was all about making a difference for seniors, their families, and the providers. I think very much like all of us, where we kind of started, we've got that lived experience in some shape or form and want to use that to make a difference in not just the people in our worlds, but other elder people and the communities around us. We actually kind of have iterated over time and started with a platform, and then realized our skills were much better suited to more focus on the digital literacy and the digital programs for seniors and aged care providers and the care workers. So what we do now is provide smart devices for seniors, carers, care workers, and teach them how to use it. We basically, build their confidence, provide the programs, like work with the providers to design the program, how does it work, the marketing, the training, the setup of the devices, and really just work towards optimizing, getting the best out of that and the individual experience for seniors and the care staff around them.
Yeah, that's amazing, and probably a really kind of cool place to start. But when you do go down the road of developing these programs with a provider, where are you drawing the information from? Is it a combination of you guys, as you were saying, kind of developing content, or is there some standards that you follow? Is there certain types of things that you draw on when you're developing those kind of plans with the provider?
Yeah, look, I think that's a great question. It's kind of we know providers often don't know where to start. So we make it easy. Well, our intention is about working with them to make it easy about where to start. It's around the discovery stage and understanding their context, understanding what is important for that provider. So our model is very much working with the provider to then help their clients and their potential clients. That's how we work. And we understand their ecosystem, understand what their services are, what have they done, what's their aspiration, what's the plan here in terms of their digital ambition, and really design that around, okay, so it's home care or it's residential care, or it's they're looking at carer support, informal carer support. What apps and platforms need to be integral into training, what, thinking about, just thinking about how, whether people bring their own devices or getting new devices, just working through all that discovery. And it's really important, that beginning part, I can't emphasize that enough. That design and that discovery at the beginning really sets a clear pathway for success, because what we really are responding to is people, devices sitting in cupboards or platforms that are underutilized because they haven't been given the support in the internal organization or their clients.
Right. Yeah. That's there's some cool questions coming through already, just around, which I might even throw to, because, one of the questions Renee asked was, what types of devices and programs are you seeing, across the sector? What are the kind of things that you're training or conducting or developing the training for? The secondary question was, can you help with Microsoft tools? As a bit of a secondary, so maybe you could field that question at the same time.
Yeah, right. Well, I think the starting point is we're very much focused on the technology is probably interacting with seniors and carers, which tends to be smart devices. So we're looking at Apple, we're looking at iPads in particular, but then you're looking at Android devices when you're thinking of a BYOD kind of model. So, smart devices are the place where we're starting, because, this cohort are generally either they've been given hand-me-down devices, which aren't then therefore personalized for them in their context, or they go and want to buy one, but they don't have the rest of the kind of skills and support around it. So we focus on Apple to start with, but we do the digital skills around broadly the smart devices. I'd say Microsoft tools probably fit into, when you're talking about that, digital skills and digital competence is a broad kind of brush, and you can help with some of those basic sort of ones.
Yeah, so maybe software is that next level down, starting with the hardware and the software that drives those phones and devices, and then into other tools.
And Simon, I was just going to say that, sorry to do, but I think it really depends. When you do the design, it would depend on what the organization needs as the core software platforms or hardware in that design that will determine what needs to be brought into that training.
Yeah, and Meg, I know you'll have a bunch of thoughts on this, but we know across our years of deploying customer-facing technology at scale across the community services sector, so age and disability, it took some real heavy thinking on our behalf and heavy lifting, I guess you could say, in the early days to get the adoption model right, so you can actually scale out the technology. And I think we see around about a 10 to 30% adoption rate of the digital technology, so that the provider branded apps that we have at Hayylo, the community apps that we have at Hayylo, and we've been able to achieve that because of, I guess, the training that we put around the implementation, ensuring that people know what it's there to do and the value that it's going to bring, and then the user guides to bring it forth, as well as other techniques to drive adoption. But we've also seen other projects that if you don't have that kind of team buy-in or the structure to bring the technology in, we don't see that kind of rate achieved. Sometimes it can be quite low. We've become quite successful at it at Hayylo, which is great. And we're enabling engagement across 100% of communities through our multi-channels. But the more people that we can get onto that digital experience, the richer that experience is, and then the more optimization and things that we can bring across the provider group. But I don't know, Meg, I might throw to you for some thoughts on what Richard's kind of talking about to extend out a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, I just agree with both of you, really. It's I just love what Richard and the team at YourLink are doing, because it's just so cool. It's really, it has been up until COVID, really a forgotten element. It was just kind of added as a nice to have, or a, really in a pat on the back, sort of look how forward thinking we are, type moment, not really seen as a baked in fundamental. And I'm really seeing that shift, which is just fabulous. So from a provider level, and awareness around how really mandatory this is now. So social inclusion or social isolation, which is what we're really all experiencing right now, just is a petri dish of breeding bad things. There's links to depression and anxiety, we know that, but also massive links into dementia, chronic disease, and actually just shorter life expectancy. So we've mapped all of this now through COVID, and all of those sort of what would have been probably fringe research components that were happening pre-COVID really come up to the fore now, which has been so great. So really hearing what Richard is doing and the team are doing at YourLink is just so excellent to hear, because it's allowing that baked in strategy for success that's going to persist long term. It's not a flippant response. And that's, I think, really key. And, you know, to talk to what we do, I know at Hayylo a little bit, you know, Sai, I think it's a part of that. We're linking to the client and their workforce something that is just meaningful. And that's really key. So it's not, again, gimmicky. It's not flippant. It's meaningful information that's core to their day-to-day. And it's also, I think, one of the things that came out of the research that we found that helps guide the adoption rate of digital confidence and digital literacy is the being able to connect socially. That's one of the driving forces of it. So enabling that social connection is really, to use Paul's word. Paul is one of the team at YourLink that I've gotten to know very well. Getting from 0 to 1 is one of his things. We have a different saying that's coming up in the different metaphor at Hayylo, roof shots to moon shots type thing. So, which I happen to love. So just getting the roof shots first, not necessarily focusing on the moon shots, is really very key to getting the basics down. And it's not just to do, I know we focus a lot from our world on care service delivery, but it's actually much broader than that. It's, as you know, as Richard and the team at YourLink provide, it's about online banking. It's about access to information and news online. It's health online and tax online, just information. And so the lack of access through COVID and that social isolation and that lack of digital literacy actually formed a part of effectively age discrimination. And so it's really our duty and as a part of the care that we're here to serve under this banner of aged and community care, that we're really enabling this access, and we're doing it in a much more sophisticated way. You know, hence YourLink, which I think is just marvelous.
Yeah, and so Richard, you shared some research around some surveys that you did with seniors, and saying about 93% of them, expected that care providers could, do more and provide some more kind of skills and literacy. Would you agree with what Meg says, or extend on that at all around, the reasons why we're seeing, obviously from the provider side and with COVID, we're seeing, and we can talk about the previous barriers of entry that were kind of around pre-COVID, but, from a senior's perspective, so to speak, or from the cohorts that you're dealing with, what are the reasons people are starting to be a little bit more attracted to technology or have that need? Is it just a general acceptance of it now? Is it kind of, as Meg's alluding to, around I want access to those basic, the abilities to view my schedule and services or whatever it might be? Or is it more the moonshot, the lofty things? What is driving people to start to connect a bit more now?
Yeah, probably a lot. But yeah, I think there's two parts to that, right? Because I think there's the feeling that they're having little choice. Yeah. So there's you think of, that research you were talking about, we were asking about what seniors felt excluded from, and the top 3 were around government services, financial services, and public health alerts. This was at the end of last year, on the back of, you think a year before was the fires near me and all the fires messaging, and everything was around go to the internet. Then we had the COVID check-in, we have QR codes, we have go to Service New South Wales for Dine and Discover, whatever there's a lot of messaging around to access things, you've got to go digital. And so what we're seeing is people are feeling, well, like I kind of have to, on one part. But then Meg's point around meaningful is really true as well, because what is meaningful to one person is not necessarily to someone else. So they are fine understanding that there may be something that can satisfy a meaningful connection or aspiration I have, And this piece of technology, their skills, can help me achieve that. So if it's social connection, that's one thing. But for people that may not have a big social group or have very limited family or something like that, it might be escape into audio and music and podcasts and whatever the interest area that may be, or it may be from a carer perspective, an informal carer. A lot is on them. And so from a practicality perspective, their ability to potentially extract themselves from a caring situation to go participate in practical things they need to do may not be as easy, from a physicality to be able to. So then the digital component becomes an access to that. So I think, it's multi-layered. I think the overarching thing is, I think people are understanding they need to, and then they're just really wanting the support wherever they can get it. And providers have an opportunity, as think of lockdown, they are some of the few people that have access to someone's home at this time still, because caregiving is potentially, is still available. So they are potentially the few people that could be helping someone with a digital component that they need.
That's really interesting. And Meg, I'll throw to you in a sec, but, I was just thinking that around that starting point that we're kind of talking about, and which is where you guys come into play around, around the adoption, of the technology. And I was just making me think about, I guess, where is that kind of starting point when you go in to sit with someone and start to, I guess, talk to them about, you were talking about, that value alignment, what is it for this person that will get them engaged in the technology? How do you start that conversation? And the reason I ask is I know from working with a lot of different providers, they approach the invite process. So the process of introducing people to the technology, to the value, and to the benefit, they all approach it a little bit differently. Some people, some providers will make a phone call and say, "Hi, do you want an app?" And, to access these services. And a lot of times they'll just get a no. And then you get other providers that will say, "This is the app that we have now. This is the value that it's going to provide." And each of them kind of approach tech adoption a little bit differently. Could you share any insights in how you and the team at YourLink start that process and get that conversation going?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's, tech is part of it, but it's the people component is the other part, is the human, like you have to connect with the person at a human kind of level. So if it's like, let's take video calling as an example. Look at this technology here, what we're doing today and what has developed over the last couple of years. If I was to say to someone who's new to technology, do you want to use Zoom, FaceTime, any other kind of video platform? They kind of glaze over and go, sounds scary, tech sort of thing. But do you want to see someone you love and care about at the push of a button anywhere in the world at any time that you wish? Okay, I'm probably a bit more interested, right? So you're starting from that position. So I think it is that it may take a little while, but you just got to start on that connection point. I think what I've seen is about the connection point at the beginning, and each person may be at a slightly different stage, meeting them where they are, and understanding what will be the next step logically for them and the language that needs to be used for them.
Yeah, right. And Meg, because there was really like we were talking about it before, there's a big apprehension, around this. I know in the early days of Hayylo, we would go in, selling apps to elders kind of thing was the throwaway line that we used to have. And, it was really quite an uphill battle. I remember speaking to one really large developed group, and speaking to a few of their executives, and they were just, flat out, no, our people don't have phones. They don't have technology. They don't want it. And like, okay, wow, this is going to be a long road, a long journey here at Hayylo, and things have obviously changed. But Meg, what's your kind of experience with that, around that, maybe that where we were, that apprehension and where we're kind of moving to now?
Yeah, I absolutely, I lived and breathed that too, Simon, over the past 14 years within this industry. That was a very common, a very common stance. And really, and I guess to a degree, there are elements of it still there. But I think if we have anything to be thankful for a global pandemic, it is it is a silver lining in terms of just, the ripcord had to be pulled, right? And this was very much that ripcord moment where the need to connect digitally was forced upon us. And so the scariness kind of just had to be embraced, really. I do fully agree with Richard, and it's a part of the Hayylo mantra too, Richard. It's very much alignment here in meeting people where they are. I do fully agree with that. There still needs to be choice. There's lots of choice in digital connection and digital literacy. There's lots of ways to skin this cat, and working in a very human-centered way around what's going to be good for them and how we enable it the best way for them. Baby steps, right? It's still something. It's better than nothing. And so, as I said, we don't need to get to the full, baked in end result that we're wanting to get to, like my 11-year-old, as we were just joking about before we jumped online. But really, just being able to feel confident around even just texting back and forth. And I was having a think about, the wider participation of just our life. I get texts from my butcher. I get texts from my hairdresser. I get, there's less of a need to call and demand people than there is still being able to connecting with life, but in incremental ways. And so digital connectedness really means lots of different things, but the strategy to be able to introduce it well, Richard, as you say, in a very human way, to set the scene appropriately for what it's good for, and how that aligns to what's important to the client and their family, is really key. And then I know, Richard, in just reading, through and talking with you and Paul for quite some time now, is that you do far more than that, which is really quite great. So there's an introduction to it, but like any change, we know that there needs to be persistent amplification of those values, and we persist with the endorsing of the digital mannerisms that we're trying to introduce long term. And so what I've been exposed to most over my career is that it starts with good intentions, and then life gets busy, as it always will do in a community care environment or aged care environment, because that's just our industry, of course. And then it gets dropped, or people move on. There's churn over roles, and then it gets dropped. And so I think being able to embolden it into the actual core service offering, so that it's stamped into the DNA, and it's not relative to roles or strategy alignment that might shift and change at an executive level. It's really very important that it's a part of the core offering, I think, going forward. And I'm seeing, what's really very positive, I'm seeing more and more of that occur through our providers as well that we interact with.
It makes sense. I was at a provider, one of our new providers, and that sentiment is definitely changing. And I think it's noteworthy to kind of talk about that it is somewhat of a daunting road to go down for a provider. We are, a very highly governed, risk adverse sector, and, starting to open these new channels of communication and multiple ways to connect in and out, with that provider network the community can be stressful. You're starting to open social feeds, social networks to your people, and live feedback, and all of these things, change behavior. And so I think it's a cool anchor point, Meg, that you talk about. If you kind of keep anchoring back on the value of what we're trying to achieve with this, and the value that it's going to have for the end customer and for the teams and for the support workers, things will not go wrong, but there will always be, there'll always be things that come up when you're trying to make change at scale like this. I know I get an invite from, my grandmother as a Facebook friend every couple of months because she's deleted her account for some reason and she's re-logged in. And, there's always things that are going to come up, but I think we are definitely at a time where we're seeing that, that need, as you're saying, Meg, kind of shift across the sector. And even that client that we were going out to talk to, that we're with, doing some training with their team the other day, one of the comments was amazing, because they actually said, look, it's so exciting that we're here today at the kickoff meeting because our customers have been asking for this for so long. And now we actually get to provide them with, the channels that they want to engage with us through. And I just thought that was such a cool bit of feedback to get from a provider, an executive at a provider, and just saying that, we know we need to do this and have known for a long time, but maybe didn't know how. And now we're at that stage, where we actually can kind of make that leap forward as well. I'm getting some cool questions here coming through, which I might throw a couple out to you guys if that's cool, because they're coming through quite thick and fast today. But Richard, I'll start with one for you. There's a question from Tara, who has asked, what were the 3 biggest frustrations regarding technology and access for seniors?
In the survey?
Yeah, I think there's some research around that. Yeah.
That was the government services. So when you think about MyGovs and all those kind of getting access to those things, financial and banking services, obviously there's a lot more push to, Apple Pay and all that, everything's about digital there, and public service, public safety announcements such as fires near me, COVID check-ins, all that sort of stuff. That were the 3 main ones.
That makes sense. And it's interesting, actually, as we kind of move that lens across to the provider lens. And Meg, I might get you to extend on this around our feature set and what we're seeing as the kind of biggest drivers for people wanting to connect digitally. Because, when we first started Hayylo, we were really, focused on looking at peripheral sectors like banking, like retail, and bringing in that best of breed technology and digital capability from those sectors. And so now, Meg, when you're looking at the utilization profiles of the features and the users across Hayylo at the moment, what are the main things that you're seeing from the provider customer side around what is it that people are wanting to access through digital connection?
So through Hayylo specifically? So
sure, probably the best reference
for
us, but even wider if there's insight. Yeah.
Well, of course, I mean, the main focus from a provider lens is always going to be the app. It is the most enriched experience, and it tends to just, much to our dismay a little bit at Hayylo, I have to say, but it will always get the most attention. And the reason why we say dismay is, of course, it's wonderful and we want everyone to be able to go, towards the app in time. But really what we know from our experience is that it's still only going to have a certain cohort of clients that will want an app to interact with. And so their preference around being met at their level is really very key. And so introducing what we call as channels, but other mechanisms that are meaningful or that are aligned to the confidence level with the client specifically is really very important. So the upsurge of, I mentioned texting before, the upsurge of SMS chat is just extraordinary at both levels. So not only the confidence of the provider to introduce it, whereas they would have really kind of shied away from that, apart from like a broadcast process where it's not interactive, they would have really oh no, I don't know about that. And now it's just like, yeah, sure, let me light that up. We're going to introduce that, and it's rolled out almost within a day. It's quite extraordinary. And then the other one really is, which has really been quite nice to introduce people to, is still being able to phone, right? So still using the phone, but of course being able to self-serve access. But that has crossover to many things. That has crossover to self-serve access to My Health, or to online banking, or even to booking in the medical appointment at the GP, which is most likely in Victoria now a Zoom call, right, with your GP, because you can't go in. So the alignment to other things that are, I wouldn't say necessarily bigger, but that are bigger than just the community care component of their life is, I'm seeing that alignment much more, which has been really great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Richard, I've got some great questions coming through here. So I'm going to scrap all the questions that I planned for today and go to the panel, because they sound like they're coming from providers and sound like they're coming from people that are on the ground doing some really, really interesting things. And so another question here, our challenge is to get ground level staff to see engaging seniors online as a valuable part of the offering. They are tired on the front line, and new offerings like these are having a slow adoption rate with frontline staff engaging and building enthusiasm with clients. Any change management suggestions? I think that's a great point, because it hits both the side of, tired frontline teams. We've been through this before, it didn't work, now we have to go again with another app. So what are some recommendations, maybe Richard, to start with, that teams can employ when they're thinking about this kind of problem?
Yeah, look, I think it's such a true statement, considering, especially in the last, when we think about the last year and the current, so 100%, I've seen it, I understand in terms of the providers we're talking to. So time is the resource and the challenge for the person on the ground. Ideally more resources, but let's
don't bring up that subject, Richard.
Let's all move that to the side for a second. And so look, I think to Meg's point and thinking about the adoption and integration on the ground is, I think, being fair on what the program needs to be at the start. So where I think sometimes it goes wrong is it's sold as a very, as in internally, it is messaged as a very big, massive change, which can put people off quite a bit if they're already thinking time poor. Possibly they're getting the tail end of the communication, and there's been a whole bunch of other communication already around what's kind of going on. So getting people along early and doing doing the stages of, we've gone to lifestyle meetings, we go to community care meetings, integrating it into the programs, the team meetings, the forums, to actually start the language and the learning kind of in there. So to get that personal fear or apprehension, move that along. That's something we would encourage. And we've also done things around digital coaching, digital training for seniors, for care workers, sorry. So we did 50 sector support staff on a Zoom. It was only an hour. Time is, they don't have a lot of time. So it was 3 one-hour sessions over 3 weeks. And it was really practical, and also the language around being a digital coach. So I think many people come into it thinking, I need to be a tech expert. I need to answer every single question. I need to be able to solve everything. And you do not. You do not. That's the biggest message today, is all of us do not have to have absolutely every answer to every technology answer. I don't. But it's understand. Simon, you may be shocked. I don't.
No, I'm just laughing. I don't either. I call Greg, who's the other co-founder, the technical co-founder. So I call him. He knows more.
But that's it. It's just understanding. And so I think, given everything else being equal, and I think it's trying to put the person at the teams at ease about where it's going to be, and integrating it, like Meg was saying, and Simon, you were saying, integrating it into a bit of a business as usual. It's a framework. It's not a 3-month, that's it sort of thing. That would be, my kind of guidance at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's great, because, I know one of the tools that we use is we, create playgrounds. So we create, pre-deploy playgrounds for people to get involved and have a play where it sits outside of their day-to-day to start with. And yes, time poor is definitely a consideration, but a space for people to jump in and know they're not going to make any mistakes and be able to play around with things and get comfortable with it. But Meg, would you extend on that? How do providers think about change management when introducing this to already, under resourced and stressed out teams?
Yes, it's a very valid thing. It's one of the barriers that we will face, and cool thinking around this is really what's required. But at its core, what we're doing, Simon, like the playground, and really what that helps do, the biggest thing I can say is that the tools that you're introducing have to have very meaningful or real impact to their day. So we have to have these very pragmatic solutions. I call it the aha moment. You really do have to have that. It just can't be the nice to haves right now, because it's not good enough right now. They're tired and they're time poor, and it's got to make a difference to their day. So if you can align that to very, very simple things around, this is what's going to allow you to save 45 minutes in your day that you're not going to be calling people, and you'll be able to go do this or go do that, or it's going to allow you to have that additional longer sit with, the carer to have a chat through this, or whatever, whatever we're aligning that to. But the playgrounds are important to be able to set the scene so that they can readily have the time to be able to draw those connections themselves between their existing, day-to-day business as usual and what we're trying to make better here. The other thing I think is I guess I'm taking that at a back office level, at a worker level, which is really the majority of the workforce. It's really very important that I think we recognize why they're there. They're there for the clients, right? They're there for that. They want to care. They would like the time to care. And so providing tools that enable them to have the conversations or the connections around the care of the day is, I think, one of the really crucial ways that we get across that change management barrier, because it's just so dovetailed into just their day-to-day anyway. And the really important thing is that they get that quick win, that quick sugar rush, the best way to describe it, around and it's just another aha moment, but it makes the world of difference in terms of change management and championing the change onwards as well. And change management, I always recommend a rah-rah moment. You've definitely got to have the time at an organizational level to celebrate the little wins, that you're taking along the way. It's really very important.
I love that. And I again, I remember a training session we did recently with a new group, and that aha moment that you're talking about, when we come in there and really set the value alignment. So this is what we're trying to achieve as a collective. This is where the value is going to come for your day to day. And then as we get into the live playground demonstrations, that aha moment when, there's a bit of apprehension in the room, a lot of kind of like inquisitive minds there at the start and kind of looking at going, really? And then the aha moment comes and everyone starts talking about use cases and, we could use this feature for this thing in my job. And what about, and then you're just like, okay, now we're into it. Now they can see that value. And that's really when the adoption starts to move and those super users come out of it all.
And Simon, I was just going to say, can I just add that I think one of the things I place as well is very much around when people start placing it, both from a individual perspective, when they say, does that mean I can? Or is that what when I'm teaching a senior or carer, or then in a staffing environment, exactly that is when they're going, they think of a person, they think of a family situation, they think of something and they go, does that mean, and so for me, there's some of my moments that matter. We call things around internally moments that matter, those things that will matter both for the end beneficiary, the carer or the staff member. They're the important things. And that to me as a training or skills kind of moment, that is a moment that matters. They placed it in some way.
Yes. Yeah. I love the moment. Like I reflect about those times that I've seen that in the training rooms and out in the field. And, especially for a cohort, the support workers, frontline support workers that, as we're saying, are fatigued from change management and really, are undervalued maybe across the sector for various reasons, to see them be able to take on that change and see that value and then be able to provide something that actually does make life better for people once they do take that leap, they do step into that fear and, get to the other side, and there's so much possibility behind it. There's some more questions coming through. This is an awesome session. I knew this would be a great one. There's just so much. Now this one's an interesting, and I kind of have an answer for it, but I might throw it to Meg because I'm just going to, but this one's quite interesting. Renee's asked a question around, this is getting a little bit more futuristic, guys. So motion sensors, trackers, Bluetooth health devices, do you have, and maybe this is for Richard, but, enterprise relationships with IT technology providers? So the question kind of is, do these devices have, online cloud-based platforms that as a provider, we can access to monitor our clients? Then the secondary is, how do we manage all of these different platforms? Is there one system with an open API that integrates them all? Yes, there is. It's called Hayylo. If you just want to let us know.
You guys take this question. That's fine.
I'll take that. I'll take that question. But no, look, it is a really interesting question, though. Yes, Hayylo does have an open API deep integration capability to bring in all of those tools, but it is a big issue across the sector. For providers that are starting to connect their workforces, starting to get their clients, and as these health devices, motion sensors, MEPAC devices, things like that are becoming more prevalent, being able to bring all of those different insights into an area to enable. And we've spoken about this in previous webinars, that operization of the insights that are coming back through technology. I might throw to you, Meg, on this one. But how does a provider approach that with all of the new, bells and whistles that are out there now?
Yeah, and I know why you're throwing to me, Si, because it's my little soapbox moment. So I think because I'm all for those things. Those things are excellent, but where I start bringing my, I guess, pragmatic mind is that they can't operate in silos. And so, as Renee is actually mentioning, we need to be able to connect that information that's being called upon or accessible, via all those wonderful things. And draw it into a centralized view that allows us to make some proactive decisions and see those trends and so forth. Because that's effectively what we're doing it for. So, look, typically, I know to talk to Renee that this has been a struggle point. Some of the larger providers that I've worked with in the past, though, have invested in internal ESB type hubs. So where I don't mean this to be in any way aligned to particular, it's only just what I've been fringe exposed to. So I'm a nurse, I am not a tech person whatsoever. But things like MuleSoft or Dell Boom or other of the ilk connectors are very much being used by some of those providers as being the centralized gateway of that information. And it is really very key because we are often needing to bring this back to a centralized client record that we're having visibility across and transparency across. And so the broader tech rollout, whilst they won't have enterprise platforms sitting behind them, because that's hard and expensive and a bigger thing altogether, what they generally do have are the API inputs to connect in to those other hubs that I tend to find are growing, across, are really already there. That's occurred already over the last few years. So to answer Renee's question, I think it's a really good thing to talk about, because you can have these, this is what I would call the moonshot a little bit, right? Where you want to have, the sensors and so forth in there. And it seems like a great idea, but the crunch time comes to operationalizing it. And then, what do we do with it? Okay, well, we've got these feeding in. Great. Who's going to monitor it? Where's it going? How many staff do we need to respond to that? What are our processes around responding to that? And so the nursing element comes through into me a little bit, because we need to have those baked in resources and structures to support the information that we're in. And it's great information. We want to be able to do it. And these are actually really quite simple things to enable these days. But again, it's the where to start moment kicks in. And, we do tend to find it starts with a pilot. And then nothing happens with the pilot. And people get tired, and then change management tiredness kicks in. And, it's very much something we need to be conscious of, that when we're discussing these types of projects, that we do fully bake it out so that we don't instigate that change fatigue and we engender all of the positives that we're trying to, lead with, not deal with the negatives that have come out of it being done badly.
Yeah, there's a question here actually from Deb, and she was saying that from little things, big things grow, which I do like that little lead in. And the question was, what's the one thing that we can do as a society, so providers, family, tech partners, to keep the pandemic, appetite or momentum going, meaning that there's been this shift. Like, is the shift here to stay, do you think? Richard, maybe to start with, are we, do you think that the appetite has shifted for the consumers, or is it just a response, and will it kind of start to balance out again? Is there things providers can think about or people can think about to keep that momentum going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at my future, my crystal ball here, and I'm anticipating what's going on here. So, no, I think, look, I think it has shifted, but I think the key thing is we think about it as a blend. It's a we still, in person and digital type thing. We still need the blend of things, and I think moving to just a digital isn't how most of us want to live our lives. If we think about it, even us as fans of technology, and we look forward to the day we will see each other in person, have a coffee or something like that, right? So that is that's the social kind of socialness that we have. So I think keeping it as the digital kind of learning, and keeping it as it's a baseline, but it's not it's not an or. It's not I can only use video versus or go visit in person. So I feel like the sentiment is, there's a bit of fatigue in a general community about the digital use, right? We've all been Zooming for quite a while, and so we're craving a bit of the in-person, but we also know the benefits of the Zooming and the digital and all that. So and I think that is probably an important part of how it can continue.
Yeah, I completely agree, because one of the things, I use technology a lot personally, obviously, and have done more so over the lockdowns. And I'm a pretty task-orientated person, and one of the things that I put into my weekly agenda is time off technology, because it is an enabler, and that's what it's there to do, but it isn't there to replace that human connection. And we know with younger demographics, the addiction conversation that's coming out around social media and around all of technology in itself, like there is a really positive side to connecting people digitally, and can help with isolation and build online communities. But at the same time, there's also that other negative side to it. And I think just an acknowledgement of that, as you're saying, Richard, it's there as part of the solution. It's not ever going to replace that human connection, nor should it, and should actually be thought about quite considerably around, the limitations or potential, even dangers of some of the more addictive types of technology that are out there, like social media and what have you. And I don't know, Meg, any thoughts from you?
Just on that topic, some of the learnings that I was reading in readiness for this webinar was tackling that, I guess, at the side, but coming at it from both enabling it, but of course not replacing what is ultimately trying to be achieved, which is social connection, but forming routines around it. So as a part of the digital confidence and the learning around how we use it and place it in our lives, a large part of that is based around routines. So when we're teaching people around when to use it and so forth, it's nice to have a staged when moment, not an all the time moment. And those things will be, so for example, in a lockdown, a once a couple of days family Zoom session, over a cup of coffee or something. And it's only for 15 minutes maybe, or it doesn't have to be long, but it removes the anxiety over feeling the need to reach out and connect. But it's allowing that to occur, but it's not also taking up their every waking, moment of their existence either. And that's the beauty of it, So when we build this into just our normal routines, not even daily potentially, but just whenever it's useful, it allows those barriers to be drawn as well around where we place it for its use. And so because ultimately, yes, we wouldn't want to get to the reverse of what we're trying to achieve here, which is, kind of what I'm actually like right now, working from home constantly.
This is why I'm bringing it up.
To get out of the house. No, we're not wanting that at all. We're wanting a very healthy approach to this. So I think it just needs to be both. But I think that's a part of what Richard and the team, really focus in on, is how we bake this into just day-to-day routines, normality, and that augmentation to what's existing and how that can help.
Can I add, Meg? I think you're right. It's that if you think about it, how we've learned technology, it hasn't, like we've had skills that we've built on over time, and so I think it is that it is embedded in, you know, one of the things for us is we kind of develop these digital skills both for care staff and seniors with, and then client, you know, customers, with a view of that then they can participate in programs like if it's exercise programs online or social support program. Victoria's a prime example now. You know, social support programs that potentially were meeting in person can meet on Zoom if they have, you know, got the skills and have the ecosystem around them, so that that social connection can still help them during this time. So it's kind of building their skills continuously, and same with the staff and the teams, using the things, you know, that we don't use things, we lose that knowledge, something else comes in, we you know, like, yeah, there's only so much we can retain.
Absolutely.
100%. There's a great question here, Tara. I'm gonna find out who you are at some point, because you're asking some great questions today. But this one's really interesting because Tara's asking if, you know, if digital coaches are often care workers, and they're in, you know, short supply. So I think we're kind of talking about the super user here in a sense, and saying, you know, that these, I guess, digital coaches, let's call them, are in short supply. You know, they can be generally trained to provide the basics. So you might be able to train your support workers to provide some basic training. I think we're kind of alluding here to, but, you know, let's say, Richard, you do some training with some support worker teams and with the clients, and then everyone gets back to work and into the field and back into the BAU day to day. You know, what kind of support is there for, say, seniors, you know, one-on-one, you know, training ongoing? Like, what happens, you know, for at home for those seniors, you know, around, is there resources out there? You know, is there ongoing training that you guys provide? What do you do kind of moving forward from the starting points?
Yeah, great question. I mean, when we work with an organization, what we do is very much do the heavy lifting at the beginning. So building, you know, they identified, say, the 100 seniors that are, you know, clients that are going to be part of the program, work on getting the devices in their hands. But we then do this initial kind of welcome introduction session. It's about half an hour just on Zoom, one-to-one. And that's a bit of an assessment there. We're getting to know them, quick assessment, kind of understanding their aspirations, their confidence, their knowledge, their skills. And then they go into, so we know in the following couple of group learning sessions what their metric will be for an outcome, you know, so that what are the things that they need. Baseline to that will be the care support team, like you mentioned there. You know, we upskill the support team to be digital coaches, but we also provide support throughout the 12 months. Like, it's normally a 12-month program. Ideally, you know, goes on for a lot longer, but, you know, you start with 12 months and they've got phone and email support with us. So exactly that kind of thing. So, how do I do this? And we find that after it's in their hands for a while, they're pretty much getting what they need. They're using the things they want to use, and they become curious. So they're actually curious to solve their own problems. They're curious to search Google. They're curious to, you know, they understand what happens when I do this. Like, that is our goal. We make them curious, so they're participating. That's where we move it to. So yeah, we definitely provide the support. We want to not add to care teams' workload. We want to support them as well. So we support them. So it's an ecosystem. I think both of you said this. This is an ecosystem. You know, we all have to be part of this. Families as well, getting their buy-in into it, because a lot of families are like, oh, thank God you're doing that for mum or dad. So they get the great part of being able to FaceTime or send email. Like, we do that beginning part to kind of go, now, if you want to, and you guys would find this, you know, with Hayylo, if you're going to do messaging is two-way. You know, you cannot send someone up to be on a digital platform and not receive any kind of communication. That is actually so deflating for someone. We need to understand everybody has a part to play. Send a message to each other.
There's a question here actually from Ross, and you've kind of answered it in that, but just to circle back for him, it was, you know, Richard, do you focus about what customers want to use? And it was from earlier in the conversation, but this seems to be a pretty decent place to start. And look, it is like, we have to find out what it is that will inspire that person to be curious, that, you know, inspire them to keep looking at other ways they can enhance things and evolve from there. There's a cool question here from Sharon. Hello, Sharon, as well, if you're on. I do know which Sharon that is. What learning have you incorporated from other countries who may be ahead in some areas? I don't know, Richard, do you have any insights around this kind of stuff from any other geolocations or?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think worldwide, everyone's got similar challenges. I think some of the Asian countries are much more digitally included just by the nature of their population and internet. We haven't mentioned that once in this thing, so we'll move on from there.
I wasn't going to bring up networks today. I thought
so we'll move that on. So tick, the bingo card is done.
That's right.
But it is one of those challenges. But I think the UK is doing some really interesting stuff in terms of digital inclusion as a country. They've got a really they had a minister for loneliness. They have digital inclusion as a language that's integrated into their government policy and things like that. So I think Australia is doing that a lot more. So I think there's really good things happening here in that sense. The UK is probably the one I can kind of think of in my head.
Yeah, I know the UK, right? Meg invested heavily into
absolutely.
into technology years ago.
That. And I don't know whether that's just what I tend to be exposed to via what we're looking at, but I have to say that's what came to mind too, Richard, in terms of their leaning in to the adoption at that DNA level is really quite great. And just to talk to the workforce side a little bit, I also see some really great tools harnessed at that level. So things, the latest one that really piqued my interest. So just if anyone's interested, I can put it on the LinkedIn post at the other end of it. But it was a training platform that did micro training via text-based quizzes. And I just thought, well, how neat is that? So, it's readily accessible. It still goes to, standardized accreditation. It's got some automation around prompting. If they continually get it wrong, it refocuses areas. So it's got some smarts about it. It's a 30-second thing that they can do. And it's a constant through their day. So learning is introduced. This digital component of learning is introduced through their normal work day, but it feeds to a greater picture around awareness of capability and skill sets and what might need to be focused on and so forth. And I just thought, well, how cool is that? That's a really, I just see that type of digital response to real needs around change fatigue, time poor, and just the user and what they're used to seeing. That those are really great instances of innovation that I can see being very practical to our world.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a response from Sharon's, some great tools in the UK, and integration between health and social care is a key priority there. The person using the service is also central to consideration. By this, I mean the actual consumer, not the provider. And I think that's a great point. And you would hope that the Royal Commission and what have you is leading us down, with the new Care Act around, putting that consumer at the centre of things. We've had a call out, which is quite interesting. Never had one before on the webinar. Ross has actually has said, I think it would be good for people to see what Feros is doing. I'd imagine that's Feros Care is doing for clients in the digital space with their clients. Ross, I'll find you and reach out to you. So Feros Care, this is a call out to you. We'd love to have you on the webinar. Ross has asked for it to happen, so we're going to have to bring you on. We'd love to know what you guys are doing in the space. And he's also said the Self-Help Center in New York has done great work as well. So for anyone out there, we're getting some of the attendees today is driving some great stuff.
I might do a call out while I've got a moment too, because I've just been so impressed with their work. But the University of Western Australia, Simon, have a social care and social aging lab that's headed up, I believe, hopefully I've got my story straight here, by Professor Loretta Baldassar. And if anyone is interested in the work that they're doing there, I'd highly recommend a read. There's an excellent collaboration space, not just with Professor Baldassar, but a whole range of her colleagues there that are contributing to some really excellent work around digital literacy and aging. So I call out to go take a look at that website if you've all got a moment.
Awesome. And then, and the most important one for the day, the team at YourLink. If any providers are out there, get in contact with the amazing team. I'm sure Richard and the guys will help you out down there with anything you might need. But guys, we're at time. I knew this one would fly, but yeah, there it is. Do you want to do another hour? Let's just.
I know, really, we knew it was going to happen, didn't we?
I knew, yeah. I don't even know if we got into it today. But look, Richard, thank you so much. Any final thoughts out there for the attendees today?
Look, I mean, I think it's just, I think, there's no end point to this in a way. It's like we just got to keep on iterating, keep on just getting on the journey. And I know we've simplified it in a way, but it really is about just starting and moving in a direction, and and having patience, all of us, like working together and partnering together. So, but no, thank you. It's been so great to chat to you guys. Yeah,
always awesome. And look, I agree, like iteration, when we build technology, it's about incremental iteration, make today better than yesterday, and then just keep working through it. Technology will always change and shift and evolve as we do. It's an extension of the self in a way. And, we just have to start that journey and allow, as you're saying, Richard, that patience that comes along with change, because it's hard work, but the benefits of that challenge are always there. Meg, what about yourself? Any final thoughts for us before we sign off?
No, I think you've both been just great to chat to today. Thanks so much. I think the more that we can, as providers or alignment to the providers, join the dots between social care outcomes and healthy outcomes for our clients, and building that bridge of digital competence and digital literacy, there's a join dot line there that we really need to ensure we're paying attention to. So baking that into the DNA of our service offering, how we enable that, how it persists through what we're providing under service is really very important. So it does require a focus with the likes of the team at YourLink to be able to bed down that at not only a strategy level, but at an operational level, making it real for your workforce and your clients going forward. So other than that, those are my final thoughts. It's been a pleasure as always. Gents, thanks very much for your time.
Love it. Thank you so much, guys. And for everyone that joined us today, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Stay safe out there. A lot of love to everyone in Victoria at the moment. And we'll see you next time for the Hayylo Insights Webinar Series. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.